chooses not to remember, but chooses to love. It's interesting, a few years ago, I remember a family occasion when someone was no longer able to attend family events, holiday dinners, Christmas or Easter. And like sometimes happens in your own families, this person was suffering from advancing dementia, an Alzheimer type of disorder. And the word that came to the family from this individual was, even though I can't remember everybody, tell them I love them. Dementia is something that touches all of our lives because we have loved ones who may experience it. We have close family members who must care for loved ones who are experiencing it. And the loss of memory is one of the most difficult things any of us could ever anticipate dealing with. And I was so struck by the fact that even though this family member could no longer remember everybody's name or who they were, he could remember to say, tell everyone I love them. A remarkable emotion. In the Jeremiah reading today, we are encountering a moment in the Jewish history when the people have been carried off. They no longer have their nation. They have been taken into bondage. And as you know from having read portions of Jeremiah prior to chapter 31, Jeremiah rails against this people who seem often to go after the idols of their lives, other gods, worshiping foreign gods, worshiping the gods of neighboring countries. And one of God's messages to them was, you will suffer the consequences of turning your back on God. We sometimes do that in our own personal lives. We reach a point in our life's journey when there are other things that just preoccupy us totally. We're out there living our lives, and certain things of life become our idols. A job, a career, houses and cars and possessions, you name it. It becomes an idol and takes us away from the central focus of our living. But now we are at a moment in the Jeremiah story when God says, in this remarkable, gifted moment, I will forget. Even though I will no longer remember, I now create a new covenant, a new relationship, because I love you. Think about some of the things you've done in your life. Think about some of the moments when you've disappointed folks around you. I think every one of us probably has some memories of high school, those early adult years when things happened. I have a very specific memory of, I think I was in college at the time. I was in full rebellion against parental authority, and I had a mother who was very determined in her parental authority. And I remember one instance at home one night when there was this family explosion. And I spoke my piece. And I slammed the door and I walked out of the house and got into the car that my parents had given me. And I drove out of the driveway and I disappeared for several hours. My attitude at the time was, I'll show them. I'm an adult. I can make my own decisions. And I will do what I am going to do. And I thought about that years later, many years later, when I was an adult with small children. And I said to my mother, I really feel bad about that particular moment. I think that was the worst moment we had when I was a kid growing up. And she said, oh, I had totally forgotten that. And I said, you what? I totally forgot about that. You what? Here I've been feeling guilty all these years, and you forgot about it? But that's the gift of being a parent and a grandparent. Your love is so amazing and profound that it is possible to forget that someone was once really awful or had a terrible moment. Today, we find ourselves on the fifth Sunday of Lent. And the Lenten journey calls every one of us into this place of reflection, meditation. We're supposed to think about where we are in the living of our lives. We hope that every one of us is thinking a little bit about our relationship with God and where we find ourselves in that relationship. And it's an appropriate time on this Sunday prior to Palm Sunday when we might think, I'd ask you to visualize with me for a little bit. In your left hand, I want you to visualize something you hope God has forgotten about, that you did along the way, or that you would like God to forget about, you did along the way. And in your right hand, I would like you to visualize something that you would like to forget that you ever did. God to forget and forgive, and you would like to forget and forgive. And I'm going to tell you right now that if you are genuine in your desire, as I know you are, that God would forget and forgive, God has already forgotten. Because God loves you. If you are genuine in your desire that God forget, God has forgotten. It's not even in God's memory anymore. It's almost as if God has dementia, amnesia, Alzheimer's. It's gone. Now, what about this in your right hand? Something that you would like to forget about,